The story of David Glatzel and Arne Cheyenne Johnson is one of the most perplexing and controversial cases in the annals of American criminal and paranormal history. Known widely as the "Devil Made Me Do It" case, it intertwines themes of innocence, horror, legal drama, and the supernatural in a narrative that has captivated public interest for decades. This video delves deeply into the intricate details of the case, exploring the events that led to the exorcism of young David Glatzel and the subsequent murder committed by Arne Cheyenne Johnson. In the summer of 1980, the Glatzel family was thrown into turmoil when 11-year-old David began experiencing terrifying visions and unexplained phenomena. What started as a typical family move to a new home quickly turned into a living nightmare. David's sudden changes in behavior, marked by violent outbursts and self-destructive actions, were unlike anything his family had ever witnessed. His descriptions of a menacing entity haunting him day and night led the family to seek help beyond conventional means. Enter Ed and Lorraine Warren, renowned paranormal investigators with a reputation for tackling the most harrowing of cases. The Warrens, with their deep-rooted belief in the supernatural, were convinced that David was under demonic possession. Their involvement brought both hope and skepticism as they began a series of exorcisms to free David from the grip of what they believed to be malevolent forces. These sessions were intense, drawing on the spiritual, physical, and emotional strengths of everyone involved. As the exorcisms progressed, an unexpected twist occurred. Arne Cheyenne Johnson, the boyfriend of David's sister Debbie, began to exhibit signs of possession. The malevolent entity seemed to leap from David to Arne, setting the stage for an even darker chapter in this story. On February 16, 1981, in a small town in Connecticut, Arne brutally murdered his landlord, Alan Bono. His defense: the devil made him do it. The legal battle that ensued was unprecedented. For the first time in U.S. history, a defendant claimed demonic possession as a defense for murder. The trial captured the attention of the media and the public, igniting debates on the validity of such a defense and the very existence of the supernatural. Lawyers, experts, and witnesses presented conflicting views, turning the courtroom into a battleground between science and the paranormal. This video not only recounts the chilling events surrounding David Glatzel and Arne Cheyenne Johnson, but also examines the broader implications of the case. It looks at the Warrens' role in the paranormal community, the cultural impact of the story through videos and movies, and the ongoing debate between skeptics and believers. Through meticulous research and compelling storytelling, this video aims to shed light on one of the most mysterious and controversial cases of the 20th century. The Glatzel family's ordeal began in the unlikeliest of settings: a charming old house in Brookfield, Connecticut. When the family moved into their new home, they were full of hope and excitement, eager to start a new chapter in their lives. Little did they know that their lives were about to be turned upside down. It started with small, inexplicable incidents. David, a typically cheerful and active boy, began complaining of seeing a strange, menacing old man. At first, his family dismissed these sightings as nightmares or the product of an overactive imagination. However, as the days went by, David's behavior grew increasingly erratic and disturbing. He would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, covered in scratches and bruises that seemed to appear out of nowhere. The Glatzels were a close-knit religious family, and they turned to their faith for answers. They prayed, seeking comfort and protection, but David's condition only worsened. He began to speak in a deep, guttural voice, uttering blasphemies and threats that chilled his family's blood. Objects around the house moved on their own, and a sense of malevolence hung in the air. Desperate for help, the Glatzels reached out to their local priest, who performed a blessing on the house. But the blessing seemed to have little effect, and the disturbances continued unabated. The priest, recognizing the severity of the situation, referred the family to Ed and Lorraine Warren, a couple known for their work in investigating and combating paranormal phenomena. The Warrens arrived at the Glatzel home with a mixture of skepticism and determination. They had seen many cases of alleged hauntings and possessions, but each one was unique in its own way. As they interviewed the family and observed David's behavior, it became clear to them that this was no ordinary case. The first exorcism was a harrowing experience. David convulsed and screamed, his voice changing from a child's to something far more sinister. The Warrens, along with the priest, prayed and commanded the entity to leave, but it resisted with a ferocity that shocked everyone present. The struggle between the forces of good and evil played out in the small living room, leaving the family exhausted and fearful. Despite their efforts, the entity did not leave David. Instead, it seemed to become more entrenched, manifesting its presence with increasing aggression. The Warrens knew they were dealing with a powerful and dangerous force, one that would require more than just a single exorcism to defeat. As the weeks turned into months, the Glatzel family's life became a waking nightmare. They lived in constant fear, their home transformed into a battleground between the forces of light and darkness. David's condition continued to deteriorate, and the strain on the family was immense. They were caught in a desperate struggle to save their son, with no end in sight. In the midst of this turmoil, another development occurred that would change the course of the case. Arne Cheyenne Johnson, Debbie Glatzel's boyfriend, began to experience strange phenomena himself. He witnessed firsthand the torment that David was undergoing and, in an attempt to protect the boy, challenged the entity to leave David and take him instead. This challenge would have dire consequences. The entity seemed to accept Arne's invitation, and he began to show signs of possession similar to David's. The stage was set for a tragedy that would shock the nation and test the boundaries of legal and paranormal understanding. In the chapters that follow, we will explore the events that led to the possession of Arne Cheyenne Johnson, the murder of Alan Bono, and the historic trial that ensued. We will delve into the lives of the key players, the investigations conducted by the Warrens, and the broader implications of this chilling case. Through it all, we will seek to understand the complex interplay between belief and skepticism, faith and doubt that lies at the heart of the "devil made me do it" case. The escalating horror within the Glatzel home led to an ever-deepening sense of dread. With each passing day, David's condition grew more severe. He exhibited supernatural strength, often requiring several family members to restrain him during his violent episodes. His once bright and lively eyes were now darkened with fear and confusion, as if battling a constant internal torment. Lorraine Warren, with her claimed clairvoyant abilities, reported seeing a dark, shadowy figure looming over David. She described it as an entity of great malevolence, intent on causing harm. Ed Warren, who had dedicated his life to confronting the paranormal, was equally disturbed by the intensity of the case. Together, they resolved to conduct more frequent and rigorous exorcism sessions, hoping to weaken the entity's hold on the young boy. The family's financial situation suffered as well. David's father, Carl Glatzel Sr., had to take time off work to deal with the ongoing crisis at home. Medical bills, combined with the expenses incurred from bringing in the Warrens and other religious figures, began to pile up. The family's resources were stretched thin, adding another layer of stress to an already overwhelming situation. One particularly harrowing night, David's behavior reached a terrifying peak. He levitated off his bed, his body contorted in unnatural ways as he screamed in voices that were not his own. The room grew cold and a foul stench permeated the air. The Warrens and the priest present intensified their prayers, demanding the entity release its grip. But the malevolent force only seemed to grow stronger, feeding off the chaos and fear it had instilled. Debbie Glatzel, David's sister, watched in horror as her brother suffered. She felt a profound helplessness, unable to alleviate his pain despite her love and care. Her boyfriend, Arne Cheyenne Johnson, became a frequent presence in the Glatzel home, determined to support Debbie and her family through this ordeal. His bond with David deepened as he spent more time with the troubled boy, witnessing the torment firsthand. Arne's frustration grew as he saw the family's suffering. One evening, in a moment of desperation and anger, he confronted the entity. "Leave him alone," Arne shouted into the empty air. "Take me instead." It was a bold and reckless challenge made out of a deep-seated desire to protect those he loved. The atmosphere in the room seemed to shift, and a heavy silence followed his outburst. The Warrens, aware of the potential danger in Arne's challenge, warned him of the consequences. But it was too late. In the days that followed, Arne began to experience strange phenomena himself. He reported feeling an oppressive presence and suffered from bouts of unexplained rage and confusion. The entity had found a new target. David's condition showed slight improvement as the entity's focus shifted to Arne. But the reprieve was bittersweet. The Glatzel family knew that their battle was far from over, and now another loved one was in danger. The Warrens continued their efforts, now having to split their attention between David and Arne, both of whom exhibited signs of possession. The tension in the Glatzel household was palpable. Fear and uncertainty hung in the air, affecting everyone who entered. Friends and neighbors began to distance themselves, unwilling or unable to comprehend the bizarre and frightening events. The family was increasingly isolated, relying heavily on the Warrens and their faith to navigate this dark period. The fateful day of February 16, 1981 was fast approaching. Little did anyone know that this day would bring a tragedy that would thrust the Glatzels, Arne, and the Warrens into the national spotlight. It would be a day that would challenge the very fabric of reality, forcing people to confront the existence of forces beyond human understanding. As we continue this journey, we will delve into the details of that fateful day, examining the events that led to the murder of Alan Bono and the unprecedented legal battle that followed. We will explore the psychological and spiritual dimensions of the case, seeking to understand the true nature of the forces at play. Through it all, we aim to shed light on the complexities of faith, fear, and the human condition in the face of the unknown. David Glatzel's life was forever altered by the events that began in the summer of 1980. Prior to the onset of his symptoms, David was a typical 11-year-old boy, full of energy and curiosity. He enjoyed playing with his siblings, riding his bike, and exploring the woods near his home. His family, though not without its challenges, was close-knit and supportive. The move to the new house was supposed to be a fresh start for the Glatzels. The older home had a certain charm, with its spacious rooms and quaint architectural details. However, from the moment they moved in, David sensed something was wrong. He spoke of a sinister presence, describing an old man with a twisted face who threatened him in the dark of night. His family initially dismissed these accounts as nightmares or a reaction to the stress of moving. But David's experiences soon escalated beyond mere bad dreams. He began to have violent fits, during which he would thrash about, scream, and speak in languages he had never learned. His behavior was erratic and often dangerous, both to himself and those around him. He would speak in a deep, growling voice, issuing threats and blasphemies that were shocking coming from a child. Medical professionals were consulted, but they could find no physical explanation for David's symptoms. The possibility of a psychological disorder was considered, but his rapid and extreme changes in behavior did not fit any known diagnosis. The Glatzels were at a loss, watching helplessly as their son's condition deteriorated. Lorraine Warren's initial assessment confirmed the family's worst fears. She believed that David was under the influence of a powerful demonic entity. Her husband, Ed, began documenting the events, gathering evidence that would later be used to support their case. The Warrens arranged for a series of exorcisms, hoping to free David from the entity's grasp. These exorcisms were harrowing for everyone involved. David would convulse violently, often requiring physical restraint to prevent him from hurting himself or others. The entity seemed to revel in the chaos, mocking the participants and resisting their efforts at every turn. Despite the intensity of these sessions, David's condition showed little improvement. Throughout this period, David's family remained steadfastly supportive. His mother, Judy Glatzel, was a pillar of strength despite the toll it took on her own health. His siblings rallied around him, providing comfort and reassurance as best they could. The family's faith was tested daily, but they held on to the hope that their prayers would eventually be answered. David's school life was another casualty of his condition. He became increasingly withdrawn and isolated, unable to concentrate on his studies or maintain friendships. His teachers, while sympathetic, were at a loss as to how to help him. The stigma of his behavior began to affect the whole family, with whispers and rumors spreading through the community. Despite the overwhelming challenges, there were moments of clarity and calm. David would sometimes return to his normal self, playing and laughing with his siblings as if nothing were wrong. These brief respites gave the family hope, reminding them of the boy they loved and were fighting for. As the focus shifted to Arne Cheyenne Johnson, David's symptoms seemed to lessen, providing a temporary reprieve for the beleaguered family. However, the shadow of possession still loomed large, and they knew that their struggle was far from over. The involvement of Arne added a new layer of complexity to an already baffling case, setting the stage for the tragic events that would soon unfold. The ordeal of David Glatzel serves as a poignant reminder of the vulnerability of childhood and the strength of familial bonds. His story is one of suffering and resilience, of a family's unyielding love in the face of unimaginable horror. As we move forward, we will continue to explore the impact of these events on David and his family, shedding light on the enduring mystery of the "devil made me do it" case. Ed and Lorraine Warren were no strangers to the supernatural. With a career spanning several decades, they had investigated some of the most famous and chilling cases of paranormal activity in modern history. Their work had taken them to haunted houses, possessed individuals, and cursed objects, but the Glatzel case was different. It was more intense, more personal, and it would eventually become one of their most controversial cases. The Warrens first heard about David Glatzel from the local parish priest who had been called to bless the Glatzel home but found the situation far beyond his expertise. Recognizing the signs of potential demonic activity, he reached out to the Warrens, hoping their experience and faith could help the suffering family. When Ed and Lorraine arrived at the Glatzel home, they were struck by the palpable sense of fear and desperation. Lorraine, with her psychic sensitivity, immediately sensed the presence of a dark entity. She saw it lurking around David, a shadowy figure that exuded malevolence. Ed, ever the methodical investigator, began documenting everything: the scratches and bruises on David's body, the violent episodes, and the family's accounts of the terrifying events they had witnessed. The Warrens quickly determined that this was a case of demonic possession. They believed that a powerful and hostile entity had targeted David, and its grip on the boy was tightening. Their mission was clear. They needed to perform a series of exorcisms to expel the demon and restore peace to the Glatzel family. The exorcisms were grueling. Ed and Lorraine enlisted the help of several priests, each one bringing their own strength and faith to the battle. The rituals involved intense prayer, holy water, and sacred objects, all aimed at driving out the demonic presence. During these sessions, David would scream, convulse, and speak in voices not his own. The entity would taunt and threaten those present, displaying a deep-seated hatred for anything holy. Despite their best efforts, the exorcisms did not yield the hoped-for results. The demon was deeply entrenched, and it resisted every attempt to dislodge it. Lorraine, using her clairvoyant abilities, communicated with the entity, trying to understand its motives and weaknesses. She learned that the demon had attached itself to David in the house, drawn by some unknown catalyst. As the Warrens delved deeper into the case, they discovered a history of dark events associated with the property. Previous owners had reported strange occurrences, and there were rumors of a violent past. These findings reinforced the Warrens' belief that they were dealing with a particularly powerful and ancient entity. During one exorcism session, a significant shift occurred. Arne Cheyenne Johnson, who had been a constant support to the Glatzel family, made a fateful decision. Seeing David in agony, Arne challenged the demon, demanding that it take him instead. This act of self-sacrifice was both courageous and reckless, and it would have dire consequences. The Warrens were alarmed by Arne's challenge. They knew that demons could transfer from one host to another, especially if invited. Despite their warnings, the entity seemed to heed Arne's challenge. Almost immediately, David's symptoms began to lessen, while Arne started experiencing his own strange and disturbing phenomena. Ed and Lorraine now had to split their focus. While they continued to monitor David's recovery, they also kept a close eye on Arne. The young man reported feeling a constant oppressive presence. He would fly into uncontrollable rages, often with little or no provocation. Objects around him would move on their own, and he experienced vivid, horrifying nightmares. The situation reached a breaking point on February 16, 1981. Arne, in a fit of rage, attacked and killed his landlord, Alan Bono. The murder was brutal and senseless, shocking the small community. Arne was arrested and charged with murder, but his defense would make headlines around the world. He claimed that he was possessed by a demon at the time of the attack. The Warrens stood by Arne, supporting his claim and providing testimony about the events leading up to the murder. They believed wholeheartedly that Arne had been under the influence of the same demon that had possessed David. The trial that followed was unprecedented, with the defense arguing demonic possession in a court of law. The media descended on the case, turning it into a national spectacle. The Warrens, the Glatzels, and Arne found themselves at the center of a firestorm of public opinion. Skeptics dismissed the possession claim as a convenient excuse for a brutal crime, while believers saw it as proof of the existence of the supernatural and the power of evil. For Ed and Lorraine Warren, the case was a defining moment in their careers. It was a stark reminder of the dangers they faced in their line of work, and it underscored their commitment to fighting against the forces of darkness. Despite the controversy and the skepticism, they remained convinced of the reality of the paranormal and the importance of their mission. As the trial unfolded, the Warrens continued their investigations, documenting other cases and supporting families in distress. Their work was never easy, but they were driven by a deep sense of purpose and faith. The Glatzel case, with its tragic outcomes and unanswered questions, remained a powerful testament to the complexities and mysteries of the supernatural. The exorcisms performed on David Glatzel were among the most intense and challenging that Ed and Lorraine Warren had ever encountered. Each session was a grueling test of faith, strength, and endurance for everyone involved. The family's home, once a place of comfort and safety, had become a battlefield in a war against an unseen enemy. The Warrens enlisted the help of Father Dennis, a local priest with experience in performing exorcisms. Together, they prepared for what would be a series of exhausting and dangerous rituals. The exorcisms were conducted in the family's living room, a space that had become charged with fear and anticipation. Before each session, the room was prepared with religious artifacts, crucifixes, holy water, and Bibles. The family gathered in prayer, seeking strength and protection. The tension was palpable as they awaited the beginning of each ritual, knowing the ordeal that lay ahead. David would be brought into the room, often already in a state of agitation. He would thrash and scream, his voice alternating between his own and that of the entity. His eyes, normally bright and curious, were now dark and filled with terror. The transformation was heartbreaking for his family to witness. The exorcism rituals followed a strict protocol. Father Dennis would begin with prayers of protection, calling upon the power of God to shield everyone present. The Warrens and the family would join in, their voices uniting in a chorus of faith. Then the priest would confront the entity directly, commanding it to reveal itself and leave David's body. The entity's response was immediate and violent. David's body would convulse and he would speak in tongues, uttering blasphemies and threats. The room would grow cold and a sense of palpable evil would fill the air. Despite the overwhelming fear, Father Dennis and the Warrens pressed on, repeating their prayers and commands. Each exorcism lasted for hours, pushing everyone to their limits. David would sometimes display supernatural strength, requiring several people to hold him down to prevent him from harming himself or others. The entity's resistance was fierce, and it seemed to draw power from the fear and exhaustion of those present. Despite the intensity of the sessions, progress was slow. The entity seemed deeply entrenched, and each small victory was hard-won. There were moments when David would appear to return to his normal self, his eyes clear and his voice steady. But these moments were fleeting, and the entity would soon reassert its control. The toll on David's family was immense. His parents were consumed with worry and fear, Their every waking moment focused on their son's plight. His siblings, though supportive, struggled to cope with the constant tension and terror. The family's faith was tested daily, but they clung to the hope that their prayers would eventually be answered. The Warrens, too, were deeply affected by the case. Lorraine's psychic abilities allowed her to sense the full extent of the entity's malevolence, and she often bore the brunt of its attacks. Ed, ever the stoic investigator, documented everything meticulously, hoping to find a clue that would help them defeat the demon. Their dedication to the case was unwavering, but the strain was evident. Throughout the exorcisms, the Warrens sought support from other religious figures and experts in the paranormal. They knew that they were facing a formidable adversary, and they needed all the help they could get. The battle for David's soul was not just a physical or psychological struggle. It was a spiritual war. The breakthrough, when it finally came, was unexpected. During one particularly intense session, Lorraine sensed a shift in the entity's presence. It seemed weaker, less resistant. Seizing the opportunity, Father Dennis intensified his prayers, calling upon the power of God to expel the demon once and for all. David's convulsions grew more violent, and he let out a final, blood-curdling scream. And then there was silence. David collapsed, exhausted and barely conscious. The room, which had been filled with a sense of dread, now felt strangely calm. The family held their breath, waiting for any sign that the entity was still present. But David remained still, his breathing steady and his eyes closed in peaceful sleep. The exorcism was declared a success, but the victory was bittersweet. David was free, but the cost had been high. The family had endured unimaginable suffering, and the scars, both physical and emotional, would take a long time to heal. The Warrens, too, were changed by the experience. Their resolve to fight the forces of darkness strengthened, but their spirits weary. David's recovery was slow. He remained under medical and psychological care, gradually returning to his old self. The family moved out of the house, hoping a change of environment would aid in the healing process. The ordeal had brought them closer together, but it had also left deep wounds that would take time to mend. The Glatzel case remained a defining moment in the careers of Ed and Lorraine Warren. It was a testament to their dedication and faith, as well as a stark reminder of the dangers they faced in their work. Despite the controversy and skepticism that surrounded the case, they remained steadfast in their belief in the reality of the paranormal and the importance of their mission. As we continue to explore the "Devil Made Me Do It" case, we will delve into the aftermath of the exorcisms, the impact on Arne Cheyenne Johnson, and the unprecedented legal battle that followed. The story of David Glatzel and the Warrens' fight against the forces of darkness is a powerful reminder of the complexities and mysteries of the supernatural and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable horror. Arne Cheyenne Johnson's involvement in the Glatzel case began as a supportive boyfriend to Debbie Glatzel, but it quickly evolved into something far more sinister. His challenge to the demon, made in a moment of desperation and anger, was a turning point that shifted the focus of the entity from David to himself. This decision would lead to a series of events culminating in a tragic and unprecedented legal battle. Initially, Arne seemed to experience a temporary respite after his challenge. David's symptoms lessened significantly, and the family experienced a brief period of calm. However, this tranquility was short-lived. Arne began to experience strange and disturbing phenomena that mirrored David's earlier experiences. It started with feelings of unease and a sense of being watched. Arne reported seeing shadowy figures out of the corner of his eye and hearing whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. These occurrences, while unsettling, were only the beginning. As time went on, the manifestations became more intense and personal. Arne's behavior changed dramatically. He became irritable and prone to sudden outbursts of anger. His normally calm and patient demeanor was replaced by a volatile temper. He would often experience blackouts, losing track of time and having no memory of his actions during these episodes. These changes were alarming to those around him, particularly Debbie, who was both worried for Arne and reminded of David's earlier plight. The Warrens continued to support the Glatzel family and Arne, recognizing that the entity had indeed transferred its focus. They monitored Arne closely, documenting his experiences and offering guidance. Lorraine Warren, in particular, used her psychic abilities to try and understand the nature of the entity's hold on Arne. She sensed that the demon was growing stronger, feeding off Arne's fear and anger. One particularly disturbing incident occurred when Arne was visiting Debbie at her workplace. He experienced a sudden and violent outburst, during which he attacked a co-worker without provocation. The co-worker was not seriously injured, but the incident left everyone shaken. Arne had no memory of the attack and was horrified when he learned what had happened. This event was a clear indication that the demon's influence was growing more potent. The situation reached its tragic climax on February 16, 1981. Arne, Debbie, and some friends had gone out for the day, hoping to take a break from the stress that had enveloped their lives. They visited a local kennel owned by Alan Bono, a new acquaintance who had become friendly with the group. The day started pleasantly enough, but as evening fell, tensions began to rise. Alan Bono, who had been drinking heavily, started an argument with Debbie. Arne, already on edge, became increasingly agitated. The entity's influence took hold, and Arne entered a dissociative state. In a sudden and brutal attack, he stabbed Alan Bono multiple times with a pocket knife. The wounds were fatal, and Bono died at the scene. Arne was arrested and charged with murder. The incident shocked the community, and the case quickly gained national attention. The Warrens, convinced of Arne's possession, supported his claim that he was under the influence of a demonic entity at the time of the attack. They provided testimony and evidence to this effect, hoping to demonstrate the supernatural dimensions of the case. The trial of Arne Cheyenne Johnson, often referred to as the "devil made me do it" case, was unprecedented. For the first time in American legal history, the defense argued that the defendant was not responsible for his actions due to demonic possession. The claim was met with skepticism and controversy, with many dismissing it as an attempt to avoid responsibility for a brutal crime. The courtroom became a battleground for opposing views on the nature of reality and the existence of the supernatural. The prosecution argued that Arne's actions were the result of alcohol and a volatile temper, not demonic influence. They pointed to his history of erratic behavior and his involvement in the exorcisms as evidence of a disturbed mind, not a possessed one. The defense, supported by the Warrens, presented a different narrative. They detailed the events leading up to the murder, including David's possession and the entity's subsequent transfer to Arne. They brought in expert witnesses, including priests and paranormal investigators, to testify to the reality of demonic possession. Lorraine Warren provided powerful testimony, recounting her experiences and observations with the Glatzel family and Arne. Despite the compelling narrative presented by the defense, the court ultimately rejected the possession claim. Arne Cheyenne Johnson was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to prison. The verdict was a blow to the Warrens and those who believed in Arne's innocence, but it did little to quell the ongoing debate about the case. Arne served his time in prison, where he continued to experience strange phenomena. He maintained his claim of possession, and his story became a part of the Warrens' extensive case files. The Glatzel family, though relieved that David was no longer under the entity's influence, struggled to move on from the traumatic events that had upended their lives. The "devil made me do it" case remains one of the most controversial and debated cases in the history of paranormal investigations. It raised profound questions about the nature of evil, the limits of human responsibility, and the existence of the supernatural. For Ed and Lorraine Warren, it was a stark reminder of the challenges they faced in their lifelong battle against the forces of darkness. As we move forward in this exploration of the Glatzel case, we will delve into the aftermath of the trial, the ongoing impact on the individuals involved, and the broader implications for our understanding of the paranormal. The story of Arne Cheyenne Johnson and the Glatzel family is a powerful testament to the enduring mystery and complexity of the human experience in the face of the unknown. The trial of Arne Cheyenne Johnson, commonly referred to as the "devil made me do it" case, was a landmark event in legal and supernatural history. The courtroom became a stage where the boundaries of reality, responsibility, and belief were intensely scrutinized. This chapter explores the details of the trial, the arguments presented, and the profound implications of the case. From the moment Arne was charged with the murder of Alan Bono, the defense team led by attorney Martin Minella faced an uphill battle. The claim of demonic possession as a defense in a murder trial was unprecedented and met with widespread skepticism. The legal community, the media, and the public were fascinated and divided by the case. The defense strategy hinged on proving that Arne was not in control of his actions at the time of the murder due to demonic possession. To establish this, they needed to provide compelling evidence and testimony that demonstrated the reality of supernatural influence. The Warrens were central to this effort, given their extensive involvement in the Glatzel case and their reputation in the field of paranormal investigations. During the trial, the defense presented a detailed account of the events leading up to the murder. They described David Glatzel's possession, the series of exorcisms performed by the Warrens and local priests, and the subsequent transfer of the demonic entity to Arne. Lorraine Warren's testimony was particularly powerful. She recounted her psychic impressions, the manifestations she witnessed, and her belief that Arne's challenge to the demon had resulted in the transfer of possession. Father Dennis and other religious figures involved in the exorcisms also testified. They described the harrowing sessions, the violent reactions from David, and the eventual improvement in his condition after Arne's challenge. Their accounts aimed to establish a credible foundation for the claim of possession and its transfer. In addition to the religious and paranormal testimony, the defense called upon experts in psychology and psychiatry. These experts provided insights into dissociative states, suggesting that Arne's behavior could be explained by a psychological break induced by extreme stress and the influence of the exorcisms. While they did not directly support the possession claim, their testimony helped to frame Arne's actions within a context of mental disturbance. The prosecution, on the other hand, focused on more conventional explanations for the murder. They argued that Arne's actions were the result of alcohol, stress, and a volatile temper. They pointed to his history of aggressive behavior and the influence of alcohol on the day of the murder. The prosecution's experts in psychology disputed the idea of possession, instead attributing Arne's behavior to psychological and environmental factors. The media coverage of the trial was intense. Reporters and spectators filled the courtroom, eager to witness the unfolding drama. The case was discussed in newspapers, on television, and in communities across the country. It sparked debates about the nature of evil, the existence of the supernatural, and the limits of legal responsibility. Despite the compelling narrative presented by the defense, the court was not convinced by the possession claim. The judge ruled that there was insufficient evidence to support the argument that Arne was under the influence of a demonic entity at the time of the murder. Arne Cheyenne Johnson was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, of which he served about 5 years. The verdict was a significant blow to the defense team and the Warrens. It underscored the challenges of proving supernatural claims in a legal context, where evidence must meet stringent standards of credibility and reliability. However, the case continued to resonate with the public and within the paranormal community. The trial had a lasting impact on those involved. Arne, though imprisoned, remained steadfast in his belief that he had been possessed. He sought to move forward with his life after his release, but the events of that fateful night continued to haunt him. Debbie stood by him throughout, their relationship tested but ultimately strengthened by the ordeal. For the Glatzel family, the trial marked the end of a tumultuous chapter. David's condition improved significantly after the exorcisms, but the psychological scars remained. The family struggled to rebuild their lives and cope with the lingering trauma. The case also left a lasting impression on the Warrens. It reinforced their commitment to their work and their belief in the reality of the paranormal, but it also highlighted the difficulties of convincing a skeptical world of their experiences. The Devil Made Me Do It case remains a poignant reminder of the complexities at the intersection of belief, law, and the supernatural. It challenged conventional notions of responsibility and reality, leaving an indelible mark on legal and paranormal history. Thank you for joining us on Hidden Horrors, where we delve deep into the mysteries of the supernatural and explore the chilling stories that defy explanation. From haunted houses to eerie encounters, we uncover the dark and mysterious side of the unknown. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay tuned for more tales that will send shivers down your spine. Until next time, may you tread cautiously in the shadows, for you never know what hidden horrors await.